When Harriet Nelson was just 6 weeks old, she started performing in risky venues, despite the public's perception of her as the perfect TV mother. At the Cotton Club, members of the mob watched her dance. At events, she made offensive jokes. She has been smoking covertly since she was 13. Her first marriage ended in a public and violent way. She cuddled folks that society didn't accept and poured beverages after the cameras stopped rolling. The American Family Values educator was concealing information from others that would have jeopardized her career. When you hear her true tale, everything is different. Before Harriet Nelson was old enough to hold her head up, she was on stage. On July 18, 1909, Sue Snyder was born in Des Moines, Iowa. She was just 6 weeks old when she made her film debut. They carried their newborn daughter with them as part of their role as actors in a touring stock company. There was no chance for a family photo or a brief stay. The role was authentic and appeared in a legitimate production. Newspapers even covered it at the time. One of the earliest theatrical debuts in American theater history was made by an infant at that very moment. Being young wasn't enough. Born into a family who lived on stage, Harriet grew up surrounded by attention, with people observing her before she could speak. Before the age of 3, she was able to speak on stage. She performed in shows for her parents' stock company, which was her first significant speaking engagement. This place was devoid of small-scale activities. With sometimes just one practice day, the stock companies put on a variety of acts every night, working fast and hard. Harriet needed to pick things up fast, adapt immediately, and do exceptionally well around adults. But she remembered more than lines. She was having a good time. Some individuals took note. She had lost her interest. She put on quite a show. Even though Harriet was always on the road, she continued to attend school. She attended St. Agnes Academy, a renowned institution with a strong academic reputation. However, she did not attend a conventional school. She concentrated on her work throughout the academic year. She went on the road and performed during breaks. In order to allow her to attend school during her tour breaks, her parents meticulously organized their itineraries. Striking that balance between theater and books required a lot of work. Despite her youth, she was already leading 2 lives, one on stage and one in the classroom. Everything was different in 1925. When Harriet's parents divorced, she was just 16 years old. The family wasn't the only ones affected by the split. She had to choose between being stable and pursuing her aspirations, between her father and mother. It was terrible and difficult for her to be about to become an adult. However, she didn't wait for life to decide for her. She chose her own path, embraced independence, and never looked back. After that break, she needed to mature fast. She was no longer only the daughter of artists after that. She was becoming famous. 3 months before she graduated from high school, she took a bold step once more. She dropped out of school to work as a Capitol Theater dancer. For most children, that would have been dangerous. But Harriet knew exactly what she wanted. One crucial location was the Capitol Theater. Joining the dance corps wasn't simple. Her decision to forego her studies in order to gain practical experience paid off. She improved her live performance skills and prepared to become a professional. Although it was dangerous, it ultimately benefited her career. She was soon performing in one of New York's most thrilling and perilous venues, the Cotton Club in Harlem. In the late 1920s, the Cotton Club was the epicenter of both crime and music. Although it was located in Black Harlem, it catered only to white folks. Conversely, the musicians were black and included well-known figures like Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, and Cab Calloway. In the midst of it all was Harriet. She performed every night at a venue full of mobsters, money, and music. Many guys frequented the club and operated it behind the scenes, including Lucky Luciano and Dutch Schultz. For a young woman, it was both beautiful and frightening. But she remained still. She learned the truth about show business. As dark as its nooks and as dazzling as its lights. She also developed a negative habit that would follow her around for the rest of her life among the glamour and mayhem. At the age of 13, she started smoking. Smoking was common during the period, particularly in public areas. You appeared more sophisticated, tough, and mature as a result. However, the damage started early. Decades later, her lung issues, coughing spells, and breathing difficulties persisted. She didn't take drugs as a show. The tragedy grew over time and followed her till the very end. Many artists aspired to fame, but Harriet put a lot of effort into honing her craft behind the scenes in vaudeville. She was the straight woman to comedians like Bert Lahr and Ken Murray. She wasn't the one causing the laughter, but it was evident everywhere. Getting that on time is a challenge. For Lahr, who went on to play the Cowardly Lion in The Wizard of Oz, it was outrageous and insane. Harriet responded with a calm, clear voice. Everything worked because of her cool head. She continued to travel from one place to another and perform at various shows. Being in vaudeville required traveling and performing multiple times a day, which made it a demanding profession, but she persisted and continued to improve. Then came the big break. The most significant location for theatrical performers in New York was the Palace Theatrical. If you played the Palace, you were good. In the 1930s, she made 4 appearances there rather than just one. There weren't many second chances at that stage. With so many people there, it was difficult. Expectations were high. However, Harriet always delivered. Her name was more well-known. Critics listened. After casting directors saw, people returned. She was able to advance in her career because to the Palace performances. She was the star of a vaudeville act after working as a child in a stock company. When Harriet Nelson was just 21 years old, she made the worst decision of her young life. In 1930, she wed Roy Sedley, a performer. He was 9 years her senior, gregarious, and already well-versed in the vibrant nightlife of New York. They first met at the upscale Cotton Club. There was danger, lights, and music everywhere. Initially, it seemed like a dream, but it soon became a nightmare. Harriet was put in risk by Sedley, who was cruel and irresponsible. She was not prepared for this darker side of show business, even if she had grown up in it. It was not merely a poor marriage. It was cruel. Harriet was left damaged by Sedley's verbal and emotional abuse, as well as his heavy drinking and partying. He was quickly enraged. In show business, he had many harsh friends. In the midst of it all was Harriet, who was still a young lady. The brilliant lights of the Cotton Club soon faded, leaving behind threats, conflicts, and solitude. Sedley's life wasn't very good. It was dangerous. Every night, Harriet lived it. She wasn't truly free when she ended their relationship a year later. That took 2 more difficult years. She was no longer with him by 1931. But Sedley was still in charge of her life. Sedley refused to comply, and the courts took a lengthy time to process the case. Thus, despite her uncertainty about the law, Harriet continued to act. Anyone who would hire her was her employer. She performed in dance shows, vaudeville, and as a straight woman alongside comedians Bert Lahr and Ken Murray. She had to smile on stage despite the chaos behind the scenes. She was immobile and stuck. Not quite yet. The divorce was finalized in 1933. The pain persisted even though it was officially over. That year, something changed. In 1932, Harriet met saxophonist Ozzie Nelson. Although she was not mentally bound, she was nonetheless legally wedded. Roy was nothing like him, he was calm and intelligent. Both on and off stage, they clicked immediately. However, their relationship produced a lot of problems in the 1930s. However, Harriet was still Mrs. Sedley in real life. She was still smiling and falling for someone else on stage. She was indifferent to the rapid spread. With Ozzie, she felt secure. Ozzie picked her to sing in his band. She adopted the theatrical name Harriet Hilliard in order to escape her history. In large bands, the majority of female vocalists were merely background noise. She wasn't Harriet. She was active, attractive, and dominant. She became the talk of the town in a matter of weeks. She was not just a singer. People were occupied by her. Her smile pulled everyone in as she teased Ozzy and the crowd. She wasn't merely improving by 1933. She was rising. That summer, they were hired by the Glen Island Casino. The place to be was there. Wealthy individuals, exclusive visitors, and radio shows that were broadcast across the United States. Harriet and Ozzy, oh. The stage was illuminated by them. Every night it filled up. Their names were spreading rapidly. Their story, their songs, and their collaborative methods. It all made sense. It wasn't a stroke of luck. Lightning in a bottle, as it were. Ozzy also saw something else about Harriet. He started writing humorous duets for her. Not the typical romantic tunes, but sardonic, witty tunes with catchy lyrics that Harriet was familiar with. People really enjoyed it when she poked fun of Ozzy on stage during one of their biggest singles, and then some. Her voice wasn't the only thing that was attractive. She was brave and had no fear of anything. It was not frequent. It was fresh. It was accurate. In the 1930s, ladies were not expected to speak in that manner. It was Harriet. She thought it was simple. Everything. The packed gigs, the new name, the laughter, and the music were all accumulating into something more. In 1935, Harriet married Ozzy. This time, things were different. They simply knew what the other wanted and desired it too. They had no secrets. A home, a family, and a future built on trust rather than fear. Love wasn't the only thing that united them. It was steady. Harriet could tell that it was everything she had never experienced with Sedley. Within a year, they collaborated on the radio. Everyone knew who they were by the late 1930s. For them, things didn't go as planned. It was gradually won by persevering through hardships, taking chances, and being given another chance. In 1936, Harriet Nelson agreed to a one-year contract with RKO Radio Pictures. At the age of 27, she had been acting on stage since she was 3 years old, having done so since she was 7. This was no little transaction. One of Hollywood's top corporations was RKO. Fred Astaire and Katharine Hepburn were employed there. She was guaranteed 3 films under the contract, with the possibility of additional if she performed well. After taking her first significant step away from Ozzy Nelson's band, she and Ozzy agreed that it was time for her to take center stage. She landed a big role in one of RKO's most anticipated films, Follow the Fleet, that same year. It was no ordinary show. Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire were in the prime of their careers when they starred in this film. Connie Martin, who featured alongside Randolph Scott, was the love lead, and Harriet played her. The film earned over $3 million when it was released on Valentine's Day in 1936. That was a big sum back then. She performed admirably, and critics particularly commended the way she collaborated with Scott. Her voice, on-screen demeanor, and effortless charm were adored by viewers. It featured Irving Berlin's songs like Let's Face the Music and Dance. She was no longer just a vocalist, and the film helped make her a Hollywood star. She is now a true movie star. Harriet's employment changed once more when the 1940s and World War II got underway. She was ideal for Hollywood's desire for upbeat tales, goofy comedies, and musicals to cheer people up. She starred in several films from 1941 to 1944 that were intended to be entertaining diversion during the war. She played a college student who staged a musical to save her institution in Sweetheart of the Campus. Confessions of Boston Blackie, a mystery she authored, demonstrated her ability to write both melodies and suspense. She starred in films such as Jukebox Jenny and Honeymoon Lodge, and she performed admirably in each of them. Being well known, she hardly ever worked at more than one job at once. For directors, she was a pleasure to work with. Because she consistently performed admirably, producers continued to hire her because people trusted her. By the mid-1940s, she had appeared in over a dozen films. She co-starred with Fred MacMurray in the humorous film Coconut Grove, 1938, which told the story of a band in Los Angeles that aspires to fame. She joined the band as a teacher and quickly rose to prominence due to her voice. People really enjoyed the film, even if critics didn't think it was very good. She co-starred with Ozzy in Honeymoon Lodge, a rare love comedy, and she portrayed a singer in a chaotic, hilarious mess in Jukebox Jenny. Other sections of Hello, Good Lookin' and Swingtime Johnny updated her resume with a few additional items. She fell in love, made music, and was amusing. She was quite active in all of these activities. Her name became associated with upbeat films throughout some of the worst years in American history. Behind the scenes, Hollywood employees were listening intently. They recognized someone who had the potential to be one of the greats, not just a constant star. Her ability to engage viewers on television may have been her most significant quality. She performed brilliantly after imitating the greatest, such as Ginger Rogers, Fred McMurray, and Fred Astaire. She gained more recognition and appeared on the verge of becoming well-known. My Life with Harriet was written by Ozzie Nelson in 1954. He revealed something in it that, at the time, few people were aware of. Harriet shared their genuine want for her to continue performing. In this instance, a woman was not being pushed away. Her dream was to star in a film. She was skilled. She was moving quickly. Nevertheless, they decided to prioritize their family. A silent sacrifice began with the agonizing decision that they both made. Her world transformed at the same moment. While she was at home taking care of her children and the house, the actors she used to work with were getting quite famous. Stars like Judy Garland, Rita Hayworth, and Betty Grable rose to fame. Staying out of the way, Harriet pondered what could have been. In hindsight, she admitted that it saddened her since she was aware of her abilities and charisma to be among them. But instead of movie nights, she had PDA meetings. That ache, that silent what if, never really disappeared. In 1944, things altered once more. When the soldiers took Red Skelton, Ozzie saw an opportunity to create something new. He created the family-focused radio program The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. It was aired for the first time on October 8, 1944. Since the boys were too young, others initially portrayed David and Ricky, but eventually the real youngsters took over. It was more than a radio program. It was a family-run enterprise. The show ran for 402 episodes with support from companies including Listerine and Heinz. This song became a hit and gave Harriet a new type of platform. It affected American homes everywhere. By 1952, the whole family was prepared for television. ABC had previously reached an agreement that permitted them to turn the program into a television program, which they did. The next event was historic. For a long time, the first live-action family comedy to air was The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. It operated for 14 years, from 1952 until 1966. People witnessed Ricky and David's simultaneous growth. They also saw the lads' marriage. Indeed, their real wives joined the group as well. Not many people saw the show, but it didn't have to. It needed to be warm, steady, and convincing enough to make people believe that what they were watching on television was real. Ozzie took it a step further to strengthen that notion. He had the entire studio set of their actual home at 1822 Camino Palmero Street replicated. The exterior of the actual house was displayed during the opening credits. Built on a soundstage, the inside complemented their home's early American design flawlessly. Harriet even contributed to the set's construction and ensured that it appeared authentic. Those who saw were transported to their presence. It was memorable, cozy, and intimate. The show had 20 million weekly viewers at its peak. Once a budding movie star, Harriet Nelson was now the ideal Southern mother. Cool, fashionable, and in control at all times. And many believed that to be her true identity. When Harriet wasn't on television, however, her life wasn't nearly so ideal. She would rise at 6 in the morning. Arrive at the class by 7 p.m., and dinner will be prepared for you when you get home. But she kept the image alive. They claimed that the show was a phony representation of American culture. After the war, Americans sought something that was painless and clean. In the 1950s, Harriet eventually rose to become one of the top 3 mothers on television. Though she wasn't behaving like the others, Harriet Nelson was the best, along with Jane Wyatt from Father Knows Best and Barbara Billingsley from Leave It to Beaver. She had a role to perform. Its strength and strictness came from that. As her TV persona took center stage, her true name and her previous career as an actress and singer gradually faded into the background. The American public's perception of Harriet Nelson was incorrect. Because she usually smiled and poured coffee calmly, most people assumed she was the ideal TV parent. In reality, though, Harriet was nothing like that. Emmy-winning director Peter Jones referred to her as a beauty for reasons other than her appearance. She was more than just kind and amiable. She was courageous and admired those who didn't conform to the strict social mores of the day. Jones claimed to like homosexuals. The occurrence was rare in the 1950s. The majority of television programs had no LGBTQ+ characters. Harriet, she didn't. In private, she adored them, but she kept it to herself. I learned more about her from that one item than from all of her skillfully written plays combined. But it didn't stop there. Cardigans and kind grins were only one aspect of Harriet. According to Jones, she enjoyed offensive jokes, the kind that weren't broadcast on network television back then. She also enjoyed drinking at night, but not wine. When no one was around, that was Harriet. If you were aware of her origins, it also made sense. She had been on stage since she was 3 years old and had grown up in a theater. That world was humorous, chaotic, and full with outcasts. Long before she appeared on a show, it was a part of her life. Before she met Ozzie Nelson in 1932, she had a long history of performing. They were married in 1935, but she didn't simply live at home. She changed it gently. For the show, she acted the part. But she never lost her courage, her sense of humor, or her bold nature. Even when she was portrayed on television as the ideal suburban mother, those who knew her well were aware of the reality. Behind the scenes, she remained sarcastic and intelligent. Before the cameras arrived, Harriet had been a Broadway dancer for a long time. She had collaborated with Ken Murray and Bert Lahr. In 1930, she even married comedian Roy Sedley, but the union was disbanded after 3 years. She was accustomed to making difficult choices. When she joined Ozzie's band, she put her solo career on hold. She didn't have to, she did it since it strengthened their act. She never lost her identity, though. Behind the curtain, it was concealed. Few people were aware of Harriet's acting prowess. She never told anyone that she had been pretending to be someone she wasn't for over a decade. Then everything was different. On June 3, 1975, Ozzie passed away from liver cancer. 99. When her spouse passed away, she lost more than simply him. She lost her life's momentum. Ozzie was there to hold everything together even though the program had ended years before. After his death, she distanced herself from the outside world. She stopped attending gatherings. She declined the interviews. According to her pals, she had changed. She remained at home, quiet and depressed. Historian Michael Carroll claims she never quite recovered. Over time, her grief persisted. It only became more profound.